If you're an F2P or low spender, pulling on these two banners, specifically Yaoguang and Sparxie, might not be a good investment. Now, don't get me wrong, these two characters don't look bad at all, but that's exactly why you should be worried. This concern is based on Honkai Star Rail's meta history, especially starting from version 2.0, and more specifically version 2.7, back when Sunday was released. And if you were there back then, you already know where this is going. Let's talk about one of the biggest sins Hoyoverse ever committed, what they did to Sunday and Aglaia. Let's rewind the clock. Go all the way back to patch 2.7, when Sunday was first released. At that time, Sunday was heavily discussed and widely believed to be the best meta support for the entire 3.x era. He was expected to be the best in slot support for Remembrance characters. And honestly, that belief made sense. Sunday could advance a character's action forward, and his kit revolved around summons. Meanwhile, Remembrance was clearly shaping up to be a summon-focused meta. So back then, pulling for Sunday felt like the safest investment any HSR player could make. Things got even more exciting when Aglaia was released not long after. She was marketed as just a prototype, a preview of an even more broken Remembrance DPS that would come later. And yet, even as a prototype, Aglaia dominated. She was tier 0 in almost every endgame mode. This only strengthened the narrative. Sunday is the future. Sunday is the best support for Remembrance. And then, the promised day finally came. Castorice, the supposed ultimate Remembrance DPS of 3.x, was released. And oh boy, those were the days. When Castorice launched in patch 3.2, there was no debate. She was the best DPS in the game. Castorice delivered triple tier 0 performance across Pure Fiction, Apocalyptic Shadow, Memory of Chaos. If you remember her release period, her best team looked like this: Castorice, Remembrance MC, Tribi E1, Gallagher. And yes, no Sunday at all. In fact, Sunday wasn't just optional. He was actually considered a worse alternative compared to Remembrance MC. Why? Because both his skill and ultimate directly clash with how Castorice's mechanics work. Their kits don't just lack synergy, they are anti-synergy. And here's the painful part. Remembrance MC at E6 is completely free to play, at least compared to pulling for Sunday. So not only was Sunday worse, he was worse than a free character. And that's honestly tragic. Sunday was practically unusable with the DPS he was supposedly designed for. All that hype, all that propaganda, gone, reduced to atoms. Even today, it's hard to deny this truth. Sunday was basically tailor-made for Aglaia, even though he can technically be used with characters like Anaxa or Phainon. Sunday's irrelevance in the Remembrance meta became even more obvious with the final nail in the coffin: Hyacine's Release in patch 3.3. If there was still some insane people forcing Sunday into Castorice teams back in 3.2, Hyacine's Release completely changed everything about Castorice team building. Hyacine is, without question, the best in-slot support for Castorice. She heals the party extremely fast, and more importantly, the more Remembrance characters you run, the stronger her healing becomes. And that directly translates into something very important: faster ultimate regeneration for Castorice. Meanwhile, Sunday has no Memo Sprite. On the other hand, Remembrance MC does. At this point, the comparison isn't even close. It's no surprise that Sunday wasn't tier 0 during this period. In Castorice teams, he was basically irrelevant. And considering that Castorice had, arguably, the best team of the entire 3.x patch, that alone says everything. So by this point, the optimal Castorice Remembrance team was very clear. Castorice, Remembrance MC, Tribi E1, Hyacine. And Sunday truly left in the dust. Sunday regained some relevance after Phainon was released. At the time, he was one of Phainon's better supports. But here's the problem. Phainon is not a Remembrance character. He has no summon mechanics, which means a large part of Sunday's kit is simply wasted. Hoyoverse tried to fix this by releasing Danheng PT, who bypassed the summon requirement in Sunday's kit. But that created another issue. You now had to replace a third harmony buffer with a sustain, which significantly lowered Phainon's overall damage. And because of that, Phainon teams could not compete with Castorice's premium team, especially when Phainon was forced to run Danheng PT. Everything changed with Cyrene. On patch 3.7, the long-awaited fan favorite was finally released, and just like that, Sunday lost his place, not only in Phainon teams, but also in Anaxa and Castorice teams. Cyrene's kit strongly emphasizes running a full Chrysos air party, so logically, Sunday no longer fits. By this point, even if Sunday could be used with other DPS characters, other supports simply felt better. By the end of 3.x, the top DPS lineup looked like this: Castorice, Cyrene, Evernight, Hyacine, and once again, Sunday was forgotten. That doesn't mean Sunday has a bad kit, it just means other supports outperform him when it comes to supporting the top DPS of the patch. So here's my advice, especially if you don't want to pull a character just to get power crept one version later. Stop rushing banners. Wait until the true tier 0 DPS of the patch is clear, and their best in slot support banner is released. Historically, the gap between a DPS and their best support is usually one version. It happened with Castorice, Phainon, and Evernight. So be patient. Once you fully understand who the real tier 0 DPS is, and how their best support works, then you roll. And yes, roll that DPS to at least E2. I'm not joking. Anything below E2 usually has a very short lifespan before getting power crept. This is honestly the best advice I can give. Personally, I'm skipping Yaoguang and Sparxie. I'm waiting for that anniversary DPS, Yai Miko. So be patient, guys. You might be very surprised by what's coming next. So yeah, that's the pattern. The early DPS and early supports of a patch are often the trap. And never, I repeat, never fall into that trap again. Don't fall for it with Yaoguang and Sparxie. Learn from history. Learn from Sunday and Aglaya. Don't get fooled. Now, unless you have unlimited money, or you're pulling waifu for life, then hey, go for it. That's totally valid. But for low spenders like me, and probably many of you watching, blindly investing is just crazy. Like I've said again and again, this is not new. This pattern already happened in previous patches. Hoyoverse has done it once, and if they get the chance, they'll do it again. Remember this pattern, and your life will be much easier, without complaining about power creep every single version. That's all the advice I have for today's video. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the Yaoguang and Sparxie banners? Are you pulling, or are you skipping? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!